We are truly the hobbyists. The small barns are the hobby people of this hobby. We don't make money by selling rabbits at all. You maybe sell 1 or 2 a year. We don't hold rabbits because, well, that would be a good sale rabbit. Nope, they're just moved out of the gene pool. We are just producing rabbits that we want to show. The other pro is we have a tighter gene pool, which means we can predict what's being produced in our herd easier.
Bryan is an extraordinary breeder. He creates outstanding animals. He's won best of breed at the national level with multiple breeds, and he's done it with a super small number of foals and a rabbitry, and I'm excited about learning how to do that to improve my own herd as well. But go ahead, Bryan. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome. Like David said, my name is Bryan Shirk. I'm an ARBA judge. I currently raise Champagne d'Argents, Tans, and Mini Lops. I have a small rabbitry. I currently have 42 holes, only actually using 30 of them, mainly because the last time I power washed, I said, no more of this. This is too much. I have 3 breeds and 30 holes, and David, it's not clicking. I don't know what I did. So anyways, so some things that we're going to talk about today. There's not a ton of tricks or trades that I have for you, because when I breed rabbits, it's more about a mindset, in my opinion. So when I speak, don't mind my cool emojis. I'm a big Bitmoji person, so I like to put them up here. Things we're going to talk about is the pros and cons of a small herd, what makes a good breeder, breeding programs, and more importantly to be successful is your mindset of raising rabbits. Now let's see if I don't do that again. Oh, perfect. So there's some pros of raising, of having a tiny herd. And I don't say tiny, a small herd, right? So the biggest thing is it's more focused. We don't have a ton of projects when you have small animal, like a small group, right? So what that means is we're not the people creating CODs. We're not the people trying to get our name in the book to make us a legacy of we brought in the tri-color Czech Frosty or whatever, right? We are just producing rabbits that we want to show. The other pro is we have a tighter gene pool, which means we can predict what's being produced in our herd easier. When you have a large number of rabbits, you're really more testing. When you have a small number of rabbits, I feel like it's easier for me to tell when I put this with this is the things I should be getting, right? Whether it's quality or DQs or improving modifiers within the DNA of our rabbits. I feel like it's more cost efficient. So I don't know about any of you, but I am probably in the top 10 cheapest people in the world. And I hate to spend money on feed, I hate to spend money on cages, I hate to spend money on show entries. I am really cheap. So it's more cost efficient. You use less feed, less utilities, less cages. It's also another pro is you can be raised anywhere. Does anybody have like a giant barn at their house? You're lucky. I have a 10 by 16 lean-to shed, and that's where all the rabbits are made out of. Most people come to my house thinking I have a ton of rabbits. They walk in there and they're like, this is it? Yeah, that's it. I'm cheap. Okay? Not insulated, it's not heated. I am the cheapest person you will ever meet. And then it's easier to keep, in my opinion, because I have so few rabbits, it's easier for me to keep my herd healthier. So I see my rabbits every day. I know who's been drinking, who's not been eating. I know if someone looks off, because I'm not looking at 100 rabbits. I look at 30 at the most. Every day I see them. And then I also believe there's more time for things in life. I don't know about the rest of you. I love this hobby. It seems like this is all I do, but there's more to life to me than just feeding 150, 200 rabbits every single day. I like to go out with friends. I like to travel. It's easier for me to do other things if I have a small herd. But however, with the pros of a small herd, you have cons. So if you look at the other side with the red flag, side projects impact the main goal. So even though raising rabbits, you pick one breed that you love, we all admit that there's breeds that we wish we raised that are super cool. We don't get to add those. Like we don't get to have 4 or 5 projects going on in our 30-hole barn. It just doesn't happen. You have to be limited on that. And that also includes, like if you're raising the mini Rex breed, you don't get to show all the varieties. Because if you want to show all the varieties in 30 holes, you're not winning prizes because you have too many things going on. The other fault, just as the tighter gene pool is a pro, it becomes a con, right? So your rabbits get inbred very, very fast. And what you need to know is you got to learn how to bring something new in and how to do it and when to do it. Because lots of people like to buy rabbits I try to not buy more than a rabbit a year. And that's all I bring in, because you've got to really play with it, introduce it into your gene pool. The more rabbits you bring in, the more unpredictable your lines are. The more rabbits you bring in, the more illnesses you're going to bring in. And the more rabbits you bring in, the different DNA that's coming in that you don't know what's going to pop or produce. Also, the small herd people, we don't have room to hold sale animals. So we are truly the hobbyists. The small barns are the hobby people of this hobby. We don't make money by selling rabbits at all. You maybe sell 1 or 2 a year. We don't hold rabbits because, well, that would be a good sale rabbit. Nope, they're just moved out of the gene pool, moved on, however you use your outlet. So you're not holding rabbits to sell. So that's a con. This is straight up, you're just going to be writing checks to be in this hobby when you're a small breeder. Okay, and then the pro of keeping animals healthier is there, but the con of that is sickness does more damage. If 6 rabbits get sick and die in our herds, huge impact. It's usually 1/4 of our herd. If six rabbits die in a large herd, it's maybe like 2%, right? So there is an impact to it, which means you have to be a good breeder of keeping them healthy. When we don't always have something to show. That's the part of being a small animal or a small herd, is we don't have a rabbit for every single show of the year. So we are not the sweepstakes points chasers. We're not the people going out and showing every single weekend, because we don't have that many. Because our rabbits are bred and breeding, and that's what they're doing. And then when we have a good quality show one, that's when we can put it out on the show table. It's not every show. Okay? So the first thing you have to do when you want to win a prize and you want to get your herd being better is you really have to break apart the standard. So I hear a lot of people tell people you got to buy a standard, right? Has somebody told you that before? You have to buy nobody's told you to buy a standard when you got in this hobby?
You just got into it recently.
Good deal. Okay, so buy a standard. But more than buying a standard, the thing we forget to tell people is to read it. Lots of people own standards, very few read the standard, I've learned. And you have to really break it apart. So when I break apart the standard, I raised 3 breeds, and each breed I was new in at one point in time. And when I got into tans, and when I got into champagnes, I really read the book. But how I do it is a little different than most people. Most people read it. I read it, and because I'm an English teacher by trade, that's what I do, I have learned that our standard could be written a little bit better. We don't use the best descriptors. I'm sure the ARBA is real mad I'm saying this, but oh well. We don't use the best descriptors. We don't use a whole lot of proper grammar, and it makes it confusing, okay? I like to take it, and I have to visualize what it's saying 2, 3 lines at a time, and then I draw it. So if I can't read it, when I read it, I have to draw it to try to make it understand. And what it really did for me is when I raised tans, right? When I would read the book about rabbits, the standard, and it started talking about markings, I could visualize it more when I draw what I heard. Okay? When I draw what I read. And then while you're doing that, you're going to read the standard, and you're going to be watching people judge at the same time while you're reading the standard. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to agree with every judge. Some judges, we're not all experts on every breed. As much some people do think they are, but nobody is. Okay? Nobody's an expert on every breed. What you need to do is be able to read the standard and be able to agree or disagree with a judge, because you know your standard for that breed that you want better than them, right? You should know it better than the judge. Okay, and then you also want to ask multiple judges and breeders. So we all have a mentor. Hopefully you find a mentor in this hobby, but that shouldn't be the only opinion you listen to. I have one mentor of each of my breeds that I really look up to, but I conversate with lots of people and take knowledge from lots of different people. I've been raising rabbits for a long time, but I'm still learning every single day. That's the trick. When I go to a show and talk rabbits, you need to develop an understanding of what is in the book. This is my biggest advice to you. Develop an understanding of what's in the book about rabbits and about your breed, not what's trending on the tables. Because trends come and go, but if you really breed to the standard, you're still going to race to the top. So when I was a kid, we were trying to make deep rabbits. And then I really think when this came in, when Facebook and social media came in, it kind of hurt our hobby a little bit. Because we stopped making, some people, stopped making 3-dimensional rabbits, and they made 2-dimensional rabbits, right? They were super tall, but when you got behind them, there was nothing there. Because what we looked at is the profile. So people really have learned the profile of rabbits, but the 3-dimensional side, when you turn that rabbit around and look at it from the top, that wasn't there on Facebook. So a trend brought deeper rabbits in, super deep rabbits, but we lost that balanced connection. Now don't get me wrong, I love a good deep rabbit, but it's got to be that 3-dimensional piece. So follow the book, not the trends. Okay? And then you need to really always have the standard out while you're looking at your rabbits. There's a janky standard that's inside of my rabbit barn that I'm constantly reading when I look at rabbits, because sometimes I get what I call barn blind, and I get caught on different things, but then I have to remember the standard. The number one piece of advice I have for you, if you're going to raise rabbits, whether it's a big herd or a small herd, is this. You cannot be a successful breeder if you never learn to be an exceptional poser. If you can't pose rabbits, you'll never be successful in this hobby, because you're not going to be able to identify what's good and what's bad in the proper way. Now, this takes practice. You're not watching and learning how to pose rabbits by standing in the showroom and watching judges, because we have a job to do, and we're on a time limit. The hobby has really did a lot for promoting speed and giving up a little lack of quality when it comes to judging. We promote speed quite a bit. It's not good or bad, it's just facts, okay? So sometimes judges we don't sit every single foot and get it right in proper line. We get close because we got a job to do, right? So you'll see judges hold the head, put the rear into place, and then judge the top line. They don't really set the front feet exactly where they're supposed to go. So this is not the place to learn how to pose, okay? But you need to focus on how the standard says to pose rabbits. And I'm going to tell you now, not all judges know how to pose every single breed, and so they're not usually the ones. Find the exceptional breeder in your breed and have them teach you how to pose. I lost the clicker. Okay, does that make sense? And you know what I'm talking about. When you see judges pose rabbits, those front feet are usually up on their elbows. They're not really placing them because they have a job to do in a limited amount of time. Now, when they're doing best in show, they're usually taking their time when they're picking the big prize. Uh-oh. Okay, so the next thing is another piece about your mindset. You have to set your standard of what you're willing to do. You should be setting a standard in every aspect of your life, right? In your friendships, what you're willing to do with school, you always have to have a standard. And your standard of what you represent yourself is how people think of you. So you have to realize that. So for example, you need to identify, uh-oh, David, I'm screwing things up again. I'm going to just set this down. I'm a fidgeter, so that's what I do. So you have to set your standard, right? So one thing is to identify where your breed lacks as a whole across the country. So there are people that say like, oh, judges are always winning, da-da-da-da-da, right? And it's because we have a certain ability that not everybody does. We get to see our competitors' rabbits non-stop. We get to touch them all the time. So we figure out what's standing out, what really is the part that our breed lacks, that we can fix in our own herd to stand out on the table. So it's not because judges pick other judges, it's because we have a different benefit that other people have. Exhibitors can do this too. While you're showing your rabbits, you need to look at what's the consistent fault. If you hear all the time in your breed that judges saying peaks too early, slides off, peaks too early, slopes, fine bone, coarse texture, whichever, that's something, if you kind of focus on and fix in your herd, you're going to stand out from everybody else, okay? And then you need to I always say, I was told by a breeder one time to make yourself known for a trait. I was raising mini lops, and my friend was like, well, what are your rabbits better than everybody else's at? And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, they're fun, I don't know. They're owned by me, why would you not want them? I think they're cool. And they were like, no. And so you need to decide, am I going to be the exceptional person in depth, color, fur, what am I going to do? I raise champagnes. The big thing I focus on that I really want to stand out and be like, oh, you go to Bryan Shirk if you want, is I'm really working on color and fur, right? And my tans, I'm working on tan color. Those are things that I really hyper-focus, so I have something that is a trait that my rabbits have that not other people do, right? And then you also have to set your standard with what you want. You also have to be willing to realize what you won't do. So I really feel like when you have a small herd, what you do represents you, whether it's big or small, actually. So for example, my things that I won't do, I won't show a mediocre rabbit. I'm not going to show a rabbit just to show a rabbit just to show a rabbit. When I started, yes I did, because that's all I had. The mediocre was the best I had, right? But I tried to get better each time. Now I won't show a rabbit just to show a rabbit for the points. That's silly to me, because when I show a rabbit, I want it to represent me. The other thing I won't do is I won't show a poor conditioned animal. So I'm a rabbit judge, and one thing that I really look at people when I'm judging is this rabbit taken care of, right? So when I put rabbits on the table from my small herd, that I'm telling people this is the best thing I got, not the best is at home. So if I have a rabbit that I'm showing, and it's rough and flesh condition, it's bolty in the coat, I didn't even care to trim its toenails, all I'm telling the judges, I didn't care so much, so Not really worried if you care so much either. So trim your toenails, take care of your rabbits. I won't show one that's in poor condition at all. Okay? And then I won't show just to show. I won't just put rabbits up that are moldy and dirty just so I have something to show, because that's a representation of me, it's a representation of my herd. Okay? So in my opinion, a good breeder presents an animal in good condition. So if you want to be known for something, at least we know that you take care of your rabbits, right? Trim toenails and clean animals is the basic of a showing a quality string of rabbits. To me, that's the number one thing we need to do. We need to get back to taking care of animals. When you have 200 and you can't trim their toenails, then you don't have time to have a large herd. That's the benefit of having a small herd too, right? Is we can really take care of our animals over other people. Because what we put on the table is our best, and that makes people go, well, that's their best. What do they have at home? Like, this one's peed on, this one's long toenail and moldy. This is the best. What are the rabbits living in at home? So you really need to work on taking care of your rabbits to be successful. This way. My next thing that I have to say is part of your mindset too. This is the number one thing I tell people, and I read on the internet a lot. I see a lot of excuses, but I don't see people making a plan. I love to chuckle at myself when people use the feed is why they're not winning. That's my favorite thing in the world. I have fed, I'm not promoting anything, I have fed the same feed, Kent feed, for 20-something years, maybe 25. I don't know how many I've been in this hobby, but a long time. Okay? My rabbits have stopped breeding at points. My rabbits have gotten rough at points. But I never, ever blamed it on the feed. If you blame it on the feed, you're making excuses. That's not appropriate, right? Breed through your feed. I believe you're going to stick to one brand of feed. You're not going to switch it. Get one good quality brand, whatever your brand is, and breed to it. Okay? Because your rabbits are going to breed to your feed. The rabbits that do well on your feed, you're going to keep. The rabbits that don't do well on your feed, you're going to get rid of, because they're not built to live on whatever formula you're feeding. So don't be switching feed constantly, because if you switch feed constantly, you're not going to make it to the top. And if you're using feed as your excuse, you got to think through it, right? Like, it's not your feed. Lots of people feed that feed across the country, no matter what it is. I have fed the same feed for over 20 years. The same feed people have used as an excuse for their animals being sick. The same feed people say my rabbits don't have babies. I have been exceptional on the same brand of feed. Doesn't matter your brand, just keep feeding it and breathe through it. Have a good record system. So there's lots of apps out there. Some are better than others, right? I use the app called Who's Do. It's an app on my phone. Why does that work for me? It doesn't work for everybody, right? Why does it work for me? Because I have the attention span of a fly, okay? So I need my phone, the app on my phone, to be in my barn with me while I'm keeping records, because I'm never going to remember when I go back to the house. The house is a solid 50 feet. My memory can't last 50 feet, okay? So you have to have whatever works for you. You have to have a plan. I have one of my mentors, he still writes everything in a lined piece of paper book. I can't do that. I was born where you got to use technology. So, but it has to work for you, okay? So you have to know, and the system has to tell you, have I ever kept a baby out of that rabbit? The system has to tell you, what have I kept out of this rabbit? You have to have a way to document what DQs this rabbit throws, or what genetic issues it throws, right? If you're raising hollow lops, your rabbits are all hunkered down because they have a hooked spine, you have to know which rabbits, you got to be able to trace where this is all coming from. So you have to have a good record system of what rabbits have in who, more than just a pedigree system. You really have to, I track what rabbits throw things, who throws what kind of rabbits, and who throws what markings. Okay? And you have to continually be re-evaluating your herd. So instead of making an excuse when you're not winning, go back to your barn and figure out why you're not winning. Okay? So I pick an area, each year I pick an area to focus on. Now, I have friends that tell me, I have a friend that tells me he only sells complete rabbits. Okay, good for you. But that's not true. We don't all make complete rabbits. Everybody makes culls, regardless of what they tell you. If they tell you I don't produce culls, they're liars. Okay? Or they're not very good at evaluating rabbits, one or the other. So, I always focus on one area. Am I working to improve head? Am I working to improve fur? Am I working to improve depth? Am I working to improve width? You always got to have a place of focus that you're hyper-focusing on, and that's the area you're going to improve your herd this year. Because if you focus on too many areas, you're going to really struggle, and what you're doing is going to be all over the place. The nice thing about small herds is we improve fast. That's what I love about it. I can turn rabbits over much faster, because no matter what, at my house, somebody's always bred, and somebody's always on the chopping block, because we're constantly making better. Okay? So when you're starting a herd, that's the number one thing that really a lot of people make a mistake at, right? You go out and you buy a rabbit from this person and that person and this person and that person and a little bit of everything, and that one's only $35, so I'm buying that one, right? Don't do that. Okay, save your Christmas money, save your birthday money, mow some lawns, shovel some sidewalks, whatever you gotta do to save money to buy the good ones, right? So when you're starting your herd, you're gonna focus on one breed and one color. I have some friends of mine that have multiple breeds. Some of my 4-H kids in there, they can't get a focus because they're all over the place with 4 or 5 breeds and they're not doing well. You need to focus. One breed, one color. Okay? And then you're gonna improve yourself as you go, and when you get those set, you could add a project if you like. And you're also going to find quality breeders. Now, I'm probably going to be lynched by some people, but quality breeders are not the people winning sweepstakes. Those are people that are willing to spend a whole lot of money and breed a whole lot of rabbits and show a whole lot of mediocre. Okay, that's sweepstakes. Because 1st through 6th place in sweepstakes, you get points, regardless if there's only 6 in the class. Sweepstakes winners are not making great rabbits. Now, there's exceptions. People who do win sweepstakes do have great rabbits. The other thing is quality points. That name's kind of going away too. You can win quality points. I've won quality points before, and I've been like, oh, this isn't my best herd, but because quality points you get for best of breed or best opposite breed, regardless if anybody's competing against you in some of the sweepstake point systems, right? So you really need to be looking at find someone who continually does well on the table, best in shows, best of breeds consistently. But also, the flip side of that, you have to think about what that best in show means, right? If this person won Best in Show at Michigan State Rabbit Breeders Convention on 2022 rabbits, that's probably a solid rabbit. He makes good rabbits, right? And if he or she has done that multiple times, they probably make good rabbits consistently. If they won Best in Show at the backyard, county, under the pavilion, only 200 rabbit show, that Best in Show doesn't mean as much. You really need to be paying attention about what you're doing. It means a lot to that person, but when you're looking at buying a rabbit or building your herd, you're really looking for the person who does consistently well. Don't get caught up on the person who's won Best of Breed once at Nationals, right? Look at the person who has consistent rabbits in the top 3 of every class. That person is breeding lots of good rabbits that are producing all the time the same way. 1 or 2 Best in Shows means you did well once or twice. Multiple Best in Shows, multiple Best of Breeds, multiple top 3 placings at a national, that's the breeders you want to go for. They may not have Best of Breed, but they have placed in the top of every single class at a big show. Those are the breeders we're looking for because they have what we call consistency in their herd. Not everybody has that, but that should be the goal of everyone is consistency, not 1 or 2 Best in Shows. The goal should be a consistent herd. Okay, and then you need to learn to look what to look for and look for what's ideal. Look at the whole rabbit and then evaluate what you need to fix. This is the biggest thing I do. I'm my biggest critic. I look at all the faults in my herd. Not often do I look at what's good. I only look at what needs fixed. And then you've got to blend that with other rabbits. We're going to do that in the next slide. We're going to look at some rabbits that have some faults, some that have better parts, and we're going to put them together. Because you don't make a complete rabbit out of nowhere. You've got to play a puzzle game. And then I recommend how I start all my herds is I just find 2 super good bucks. 2. That's it. And then I find 4 or 5 super good strong does. That's it. And I go from there. And I probably don't bring in another rabbit for a couple of years when I start that because I'm making my line and figuring out what things connect. I do a lot of line breeding. So let's look at, oh my goodness. Let's look at some rabbits. I know the lighting is not good, so these are mini locks, right? So when I look at rabbits, these are things I look at. I'm going to go behind here and hope I don't trip on some wires. So if you look at these 3 rabbits, doesn't matter the gender right now, we're just going to evaluate them, right? So when I'm looking at rabbits, number one thing I look at no matter what the breed is, I look at the length of the midsection. Because if you have a long rabbit that's supposed to be compact, the length of the midsection distorts all of this roundness over the top. I also look at bone, which is how thick their bone is. Because if I'm raising mini lops and they have super heavy bone, I'm going to have better head, ear, and crowns. If I'm raising my champagnes and they have super heavy bone, I'm usually going to have a dip in the shoulder. So you got to pay attention to that. So let's look at this rabbit. So some big pet peeves of mine in any lot breed is creased ears. I have to reset my mind when I judge because in my herd, if you have creased ears, you're gone. But when I'm judging, I have to be like, creased ears, okay, how many points are ears? Don't get caught up on that, right? But let's look at these rabbits. So you'll see the width of the ear on some of these, okay? See how this rabbit has kind of like a narrow width at the base of that ear, because she has a little bit finer bone, but he has a much better shape to the ear. This one starts smooth out of the shoulder, but this one has a late start out of the shoulder, and he peaks in the middle of the back, so you see how he kind of has a line. Oh, I'm blind. Oh, See how he has a light, like a line right there where he's flat on the top of his hip? So these are rabbits, that's what I look for. I'm like, well, this one has this piece, this one, but not this piece. This one has that piece, but not this piece. And I try to blend things together. Then you look at this rabbit here, he's super, super tall. He's got a lot of depth, but if you look, he's got a really flat forehead. He's really narrow in the head part of him. But this doe has a really good curvature to that head. The ear sits behind the eye. This one sits further back, and the ear is at a diagonal. So I'm going to try to cross these ones to create the to get the depth, to get the high point further back, but to fix the head. And it's really just a game of puzzle pieces. I don't just breed rabbits together to breed rabbits together. I don't do that. But I always look at what I'm doing when I breed. And you really got to understand your standard to see what's a fault and what's your strength, right? And you have to be able to pose. Ignore that this one's not posed very well. But does that make sense to anybody? Like, that's what you're looking for. In my mind, you're looking at all these different pieces of the rabbit and deciding do they go together. Now, if you have a rabbit that you say more bad things about it than good, don't use that one. Because if they have a ton of faults, they're not very good. Now, if you have a marked breed, that's a little bit different trick, and you got to ask somebody who's raised marked breed rabbits. They frustrate me way too much because you got to keep the non-good marked ones, you breed to make the good. That drives me crazy. So you got to be pretty to live in my barn. You can't just be the rabbit with maybe some markings behind it. That drives me crazy. So don't ask me. Okay. And I think I screwed this one up and made two of the same slide. Okay. So then when we're breeding these rabbits, we really need to think about line breeding. I don't know why we use the term line breeding. I'm not that kind of person. It's the same as inbreeding, and we all know what inbreeding is, right? Not good in humans, great in rabbits, okay? So line breeding is the same as inbreeding. This is what breeders use to pull out the good. So you'll hear a lot of people say, my best rabbits come out of line-bred rabbits, which is really mother to daughter, dad to daughter, grandparents to grandchildren, sibling to sibling, or half-sibling to half-sibling. You're really breeding rabbits that are related. But you have to realize, and we don't say this as much, we pull out some of the best rabbits in line breeding, but we also pull out some of the ugliest. So you have to be able to decide, because you're matching up qualities that you're trying to get rid of. Why I like to pull out the ugly ones is I can call that out of my herd. So I can predict, the more I breed and line breed, the less I'm going to have those rabbits in my herd. Okay? So I want to show you this pedigree, and it looks better on my camera, or on my phone at home. You can't really see it. This rabbit is the rabbit that won Best to Breed Tan at convention. And if you look, what's very interesting is these two rabbits, this rabbit, this rabbit, this rabbit, this rabbit are all siblings. So these two rabbits and these two rabbits are the exact same rabbits. Same buck, same buck, same dog, same dog. We bred them, so these rabbits out of the same litter, we took two rabbits out of that litter and bred them. So then we did two more siblings and produced the Best Breed winner at convention. So the more you line breed, the tighter, the more it is to predict. But now we got to cross something in, because another one on this, you might get one with 3 eyes. I don't know. So, and if I can change the standard, 3-eyed rabbits are going to be a breed, because that'd be cool. But give me time. So it's really reusing these litter mates to create closely bred rabbits. Now, with that litter that was sibling to sibling, sibling to sibling, sibling to sibling, produced the best of breed, the best opposite breed, and the best chocolate at convention. 3 big winners came out of this. However, 2 other ones that came out of it were dogs. Like, they were horrid. So you have to be able to be like, okay, these 2, don't care if they're related to them, those 2 gotta go. And the dogs did like those 2. Okay, so then here's my last slide. The number 1 rule, I think, when you breed rabbits is you gotta think through your breedings, but the biggest thing is you gotta be willing to breed. You got to think through your parents, but you got to be willing to breed anything to anything, but you also got to be willing to cull it all if it doesn't work. So there are more times than not I cull the entire litter. More times than not I keep one and cull the rest. A couple of years ago somebody asked me how many rabbits I culled, so I took like 10 months or whatever, and I kept track of how many rabbits I bred to how many rabbits I kept. I keep about 4% of what I make. So the rest goes into the circle of life, like the Lion King, okay? But I keep about 4% because I have a small herd. I breed rabbits all the time. That's why I love tans. They peak at 4 months. I will say smaller herd rabbits, when we have smaller herds, I do better with my juniors because they have to look good fast to stay in the barn. So I do make a junior herd. My tans do better as juniors. My champagnes do better as juniors. My lops do better as juniors, because you have to look good young to stay in my herd, because I don't have the space. to sit on rabbits that may or may not go well for a year. Okay? That is the end. Does anybody have questions